What is up, guys? In this video I will be discussing and reviewing MJ Demarco's book, The Millionaire Fastlane. And specifically, one specific concept that he introduces in the book that I find very interesting and you will find very useful. So stay tuned for that. So, in MJ Demarco's book, first off, if you don't know who this guy is, and again, the title for the book is kind of cheesy, but people do that to get attention. It's one of the reasons why Tim Ferriss titled his book The 4-Hour Work Week. And it's one of the reasons why it sold millions of copies. Anyhow, despite the cheesy name, it is a very fascinating book. It's not the best book I've ever read in terms of wealth creation, but it's interesting for the specific concept that he introduces. And before I get to that, let me just give you, 1 second bio. Okay, 1 minute bio about who this guy is. MJ Demarco is basically a man who made his money through online businesses and got a lot of experience in making money through that. So again, he's not someone I would credit extensive amounts of weight to the extent I would respect or listen to some of these other people I've read books on. Napoleon Hill, like this man spent 20 years studying 50 to 200 of the wealthiest people in the world, including people worth billions of dollars. He spent 20 years of extensive research studying it before he wrote his books. Like that's where I respect more. However, having said that, the reason why I read books like this is because sometimes, you don't want billions of dollars. Or sometimes you want a specific, perspective based off the industry or area that you're pursuing. And so, I'm kind of interested in the online internet business space. So I wanted to hear about this man. And I've heard about him in a few podcasts. He's still alive. So what is this concept that he talks about that's so interesting? Well, it's quite simple. And it's kind of implied in the title of his book, Fastlane. And his whole idea is that we want to become rich quickly. And, it's no fun waiting until you're 60 or 70 years old to become rich. And that's true. I mean, for me, I've read a lot of books on personal finance and the power of compounding and compound interest and investments, and how if you do it right and if you save and you put a portion of your money aside, it will grow exponentially. And if you do everything right, by the time you're 50 or 60 or 70 years of age, you will be quite wealthy. And there's a lot of math behind that and specifics to how that works. And it's true, but like it or not, some of us, we want to do certain things now while we are young. And so that's one of his big points in the book. And you tend to forget that sometimes. And some people, they're fine with waiting until they're 60 or 70. Others, they force themselves or they hold back from living life to the fullest because they think that I have to suffer now for the next 50 years before I can get to a place where then I'll be wealthy and I'll be able to do what I want. But the thing is, what if you're so old you can't even get out of bed and you're too old to do any of the things that you can now afford, but you're not healthy enough to do? So that's a huge problem in and of itself. And I do think that you shouldn't hold back to that extent. And I want to quote the billionaire Warren Buffett on 2 accounts. The first is that he said that he and his wife never held back from anything. And I find that incredible. And so, he embodied this and he has taught this in a lot of ways. He was picked up from the airport by a Harvard business student. And the guy was going on about how, he was graduated from Harvard and then he was doing this. He was interning here and then he was going to do this. And Warren Buffett was just like, well, why are you doing all this? And he's like, because, then I'll get experience. And then one day when I'm 35 years old, I'll have all these credentials. And then I can finally do what I want. And then Warren Buffett's like, well, isn't that like saving up sex for old age? And he kind of said that tongue in cheek, but the point of that was just to like show you that, sometimes even he didn't hold back to that extent. And then the second important caveat and second point that I have to quote from Warren Buffett was that he was also one who did not let materialism and superficiality consume him. So even though he was making millions, he still lived within his realms, and he knew that spending excessively would not make him any happier. So he bought a house for like $40,000, and he's lived in it all his life. He's like 80 something years old now, and he still lives in that same neighborhood in that same small house. And he doesn't buy like expensive Lamborghinis or anything, even though he could buy like a fleet of 10,000 of them with his $75 billion. No, he's donating most of it to charity. And he has seen a lot of other people be consumed by wealth or see that, control them. And he's not letting that occur. So, he didn't hold back, but at the same time, he didn't let wealth consume him. And on top of that, one of the things he says is that he was fine with, getting rich slowly. He was not in a hurry to get rich, and that helped with his investments. And the way he invests and the style of how he invests, it's really exponential and long tail. So it's very, very slow, but then, once you're hitting your 70s and 80s, those billions are compounding to more billions very, very rapidly. So it's like a very slow, start, kind of like YouTube is. The first 2 years of YouTube, you're getting like 1 view per video, and it's like agonizing. But then it just starts snowballing, and you're getting 100,000 subscribers every day, and then you're at the #1 most subscribed YouTuber of all time, like PewDiePie. And now he has 40 million subscribers, and he gets like 500,000 every week or so, which is just mind-blowing. But you get the point. And so, he quotes that a lot, and he has a lot of examples of friends who were impatient, and they started gambling in the stock market and leveraging and using other people's money, and then the market turns and goes against them, and they go severely into debt. So it's an interesting thing. But MJ DeMarco's whole philosophy and idea and concept is that, you can get wealthy while you're still young. And maybe that has evaded me slightly, or I've forgotten about it, but I do think that this is true. Like, it's probably because of my aversion and a lot of most people's aversions to get rich quick schemes, because most of them are scams. But his whole point has refreshed in my mind, because it's true. Like, you don't have to like throw your hands up and give up and hold yourself back from experiencing the world and experiencing life. He brought back the idea that you can and you will get fairly wealthy and do what you want while you're fairly young. So again, you have to, I would say, take that with a grain of salt, because again, it can get dangerous. But I would say, the big message for me is it's just a reminder that you can still do really cool stuff, and you don't have to suffer so much for like 50 years of age. And let's be frank, like sometimes not all of us will get 50 years, let alone 80 years of age. Many of us die at 40 or 50 or 30 from something unexpected. And that's unfortunately the case. So that's all I gotta say. As always, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll leave the links in the description if you want to hear more about these books. Check them out and whatever. I'll see you guys later. Peace.